So a lot of you guys reached out for me to review a Gigabyte motherboard. Surprisingly, for the past 2.5 years, almost 3, and about 50 plus motherboard, I had never reviewed a Gigabyte motherboard on the channel. I mean, I've been toying around with them, I've been playing with them, people sent me some, but I really never had the time to really take a second look at it. I did spend a little bit of time, particularly with the Z390 AORUS PRO Wi-Fi gaming motherboard, and there's so much to unpack. There's so very much to unpack, but in a nutshell, I'm absolutely in love. AORUS is Asus ROG and MSI direct competition, and in such a highly competitive market such as the gamers market, it doesn't only take engineering to differentiate yourself, it also takes a lot of imagination, and that's probably why I love this sport so much. But I'm going one step ahead. Let's start with the obvious. The Z390 AORUS Pro Wi-Fi is an ATX motherboard, meaning 24.4 cm wide for 30.5 cm large. It is powered by the usual LG A1151 CPU socket, which supports both the 8th and 9th generation of Intel Core processors. VRM-wise, well, this is where things start to get really interesting. We have no less than 12 50 amps individual phases, 12, which brings us the double advantage of delivering a rock-solid voltage to the most demanding CPU, guaranteeing a stable 5 GHz frequency clock to whatever you're gonna throw at this motherboard, yes, including the gargantuesque i9 9900K 8 physical core processor. And here, make no mistake, Gigabyte is not looking at maintaining their market share. They are going heavy with the VRM so that they can grow it. And at this kind of price, you're not going to find as well-equipped VRM anywhere else. So yeah, kudos to Gigabyte for this. Taking a closer look to our heatsink, they are thick, they are solid, there's a nice tube to transport the hot air from one side to the other, and unsurprisingly, they're doing a stellar job at keeping our VRM stable and cool in any given situation. Memory-wise, we have our usual 4DIMM dual-channel memory configuration, which can support up to, and be careful here, 128 GB of DDR4 RAM with a 32 GB DIMM support, overclockable up to 4266 MHz. So let this sink in, because this is an abnormal amount of RAM, of memory for Z chipsets, let alone dual channel configuration, and it's rare. The only other motherboard which I've seen which can support 128 GB of DDR4 RAM in a dual channel configuration and on a Z chipset is Asus ROG Maximus 11 Hero, which I had reviewed a couple of months ago, and you should take a closer look at. And that tells you everything you need to know about AORUS. It is hungry. Hunger! It is hungry. Alright, so staying in the memory, this board can support up to 2 horizontal M.2 solid state drive, both of which can transfer up to 32 gigabit per second thanks to the Z390 chipset Optane Ready feature. And obviously, it will hit our stick all the way up to thermo throttling levels, and that is precisely why our stick are both equipped with rather heavy and very thick padded thermo shields. And that's great. But I do have a little critic. If you take the motherboard, which I'm gonna do like that, and there you go. And listen to this. You hear this? Okay, so what happens here is, for some reason, the screws do not secure the heat shield in place. There is a little bit of play between the heat shield and the screw itself, allowing this little bit of movement. And that's fine, but I'm afraid that once we place this motherboard in an in a vertical position, over time, as the thermopad lose their adhesive nature, it would maybe not transfer as much heat as it should onto the plate. And I'm sure I'm wrong on that, but I would prefer not to see this on the next iteration of the Z390 AORUS Pro Wi-Fi, or any AORUS in general, because it's really premium build. You can really feel it. But something that I'd like to see taken care of. Alright, so export-wise, we have 6 third-generation PCIe Expresses, 3 single slot, single speed, and 3 16 slots with different speeds. And nothing very surprising here. As usual, only the closest PCIe to the CPU can deliver up to 16 bus speed. Therefore, if you are going for a single GPU configuration, this is where you want it to be. If you're going for a dual GPU configuration, only these 2 PCI Expresses can deliver individually 8x8 bus speed, and therefore this is where you'd want your video card to be. And if you'd wanted to go all the way to 3-way GPU configuration, which by the way I do not recommend on any Z390 chipset, you would find yourself in an 8x4x4 bus configuration. Note that because these 2 PCI Expresses are the most likely to carry the heavy weight of our video cards, they have been as well metallically reinforced. IO-wise first, I want to say that I am happy to see an integrated IO shield. This is something that Asus did introduce back 2 years ago with Maximus 9 formula, and that I absolutely wanted to see bleed out through the market, and I'm very happy, and I will take full credit for this, to see it on all the brands nowadays. So starting from the left, we have 4 second-generation USB plugs with a 480 megabits transfer rate, 3 3.1 first-generation USB plugs with a 5 gigabit transfer rate, and 3 3.1 second-generation USB plugs, including a Type-C rated at 10 gigabit transfer rate. Next, we have an HDMI 1.4 output for our integrated graphics, a 802.11 AC dual-band Wi-Fi adapter with a theoretical transfer rate of 1.73 gigabit per second, a gigabit LAN, and finally our rather high-end ALC 1220 VB enhanced 7.1 channel from Realtek, and that's already great, but Gigabyte went 1 or 2 level higher. They added on the board some WiMA capacitors, which are really high-end capacitors that I've never seen on any motherboard, and that what that does is better impedance and crystal clear audio, and it really is very good at filtering out electrical interferences. For example, in Lebanon, Beirut, if you plug in your computer, there's no ground in it, so if you're going to record directly from your motherboard without an external audio card, you're going to hear a bzzz all around your audio recording, which is extremely annoying. So that should take care of that. And on top of this, you're going to have awesome deep bass, which is super important when, I don't know, you watch a movie or play video games. So yeah, surprisingly good and unique, I want to say. So really double, triple, quadruple kudos to Gigabyte for this one. Very quickly, SATA-wise, we have the usual 6 third-generation plugs, which can all transfer up to 6 gigabit per second and which can operate in RED 0, 1, 5, or 10. Front panel connector-wise, we have 2 second-generation USB connectors, 2 5 gigabit 3.1 USB connector right here, a 10 gigabit 3.1 second-generation Type-C front panel connector right here, and finally a Thunderbolt 3 connector in the case that all those connectors and front panel USB connectors were not enough. And where things start to really get interesting is in the custom water cooling abilities of this motherboard. We have 8 native PWM fans, one of which can support an all-in-one CPU water cooler, but most importantly, 2 dedicated 10-watt water pump connectors, meaning that this motherboard can support the most obscene and extreme custom water cooling configuration, and I love it. And of course, who says water cooling configuration means thermal monitors, and that's why you have right on top of our water pumps connector 2 thermistors connectors right here. Troubleshooting wise, we do have an easy debugger right here, and I dare you to say easy debugger 10 times in a row. Easy debugger, easy debugger, easy debugger, easy debugger. It is extremely useful when you want to troubleshoot a cold boot when it doesn't want to start, and you want to see at what sequence of your boot it stopped, either VGA, RAM, CPU, etc. So yeah, absolutely a great, enthusiastic, friendly feature, especially for the more advanced builders out there. Finally, this board would not be an enthusiast board without its health dose of bling bling, and ours really went all out on the bling bling. We have no less than 6 Fusion Sync Effect compatible RGB strips nested on this board. 3 of them concentrated around our dual channel RAM DIMMs. In addition, we have one under our I/O roof and I/O integrated plate, and again a very difficult, needlessly difficult sentence to pronounce. One tracing through the border right here and one right under the chipset heat shield. Worth noting, we have a smaller one right under the letters XMP, which will also clearly let us know if indeed XMP is on or off. Good looking, yet useful. And of course, if this was not enough, you have no less than 2 RGB connectors here and 2 addressable RGB connectors right there. And I want you to note that they have been placed in pairs and at opposite side of the board, and that will allow us a better plugging access in any angle. So very well thought by Gigabyte, very well thought indeed. And if you wanted to create a brand new solar system in our infinite galaxy, this board could power your sun, no doubt. And in conclusion, for anywhere between $195 to $200 before taxes, the Z390 AORUS Pro Wi-Fi successfully, brilliantly delivers an absolutely premium board with exquisite engineering, and I'm gonna explain myself on this. Entry level usually means a 7th balancing act between budget and features. And you know, when you've been reviewing as many boards as I had, this starts to all look alike and kind of feel the same. And that's not really their fault, because all their features are more dictated by the chipset, which in this case is produced by Intel. But what Gigabyte did here, and some other brands have forgotten, is produced a premium focused motherboard. There's only 3 or 4 real big features here that had to be delivered correctly to have a successful board, and they did. We have a great VRM, we have an amazing VRM, 10 CPU-centric phases which can overclock any kind of processor out there without any kind of thermal throttling. A crazy memory support of 128 GB of DDR4 RAM, which again is quite rare in that segment, especially at that price, and an obsessively good and premium sound treatment which has been placed with very high quality capacitors. It's not the obvious focus usually on motherboards, but here Gigabyte made a statement and wanted to differentiate itself, and it absolutely succeeded on that. But I did say I was in love with this motherboard. I didn't say I liked it, I'm in love. And that's for something else. I sense an overall common sense approach to the engineering of the board. The placement of the connectors, the fact that we have our water pumps right next to each other for an easy custom water cooling application or configuration. Right on top of those, we have thermistors for temperature monitoring, so you don't have to go around the board to look where are your thermal connectors as in other boards. Here it's all placed in one segment of the board. I love that. The fact that our fans are well spread out. The 8 fan connectors are well spread out around the board. Another thing I really like, the fact that the CPU fan is gray, so they can easily spot it when you're looking at it, when you're looking for it. The fact that our RGB connectors come in pairs, addressable and non-addressable, and in opposite side of the motherboard. Again, something that makes sense if you want to have easy access, because your RGB strips usually are going all around your case, and you always have to use extensions, and here it's just going to make it easier. What else? Also, for first-time builder, The fact that we have clear writing. First, the XMP is in big. You have RGB LEDs, which are going to let you know if it's on and off. You have very sensible sentences, not words, sentences printed on the PCB. For example, this is an LG1151 socket, and it does power 9th generation Intel processor. Simple yet effective for every first-time builder. And in the very same time, we are dealing with a board which is a dream for enthusiasts, and I already mentioned that, and I don't have much critics to make, especially given that this is about $100 cheaper than its natural competition. So either first-time builder or seasoned enthusiast rig master out there, I would not want to put my money anywhere else.